Mhm. Welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. I'm your host, Junor Francis. This series celebrates the ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scene in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with legends and modern-day talent, including those behind the scenes. As I mentioned, week after week, there are a lot of people working behind the scene. You haven't seen them. So whether you listen to this podcast series or watch us on TV, many thanks for your support, ongoing support. On this splendid episode, we welcome one of the most talented and gifted keyboardists, songwriter, producer, dub engineer, and selectors on the scene today, Roger Rivas. He's of the Aggrolites, Long Beach Dub Allstars, Mraz, Rivas Studios, to name only a few. What an extensive list, what a biography. Welcome, Mr. Rivas. How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, Junior?
Nice. You wear so many hats that I'm trying to think how to define you. But I guess you're the process of the conversation. You'll define yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Yes. I think it goes without saying. As a matter of fact, I don't want to forget this point. You know, when I used to go watch the Aggrolites.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say on or about 20 years ago, I would really and truly, no disrespect to the other members because they are all my friends, I would go to watch you on the keys.
Thank you.
Sometimes the truth must be told. But man, this is a resurrection of Jackie Mitu and Winston Wright all in one.
Oh man, thank you.
And so one day I had a conversation with Adrian Villalobos, and he told me, well, you know, I'm jumping ahead of the interview. He said, and he didn't even start off his career playing the keys. No. Wow.
No, yeah. I mean, I've known Adrian for a long time. Really good friend. And he's a huge part of the scene here in Los Angeles. But yeah, when I first started off, it was trumpet. I think it's funny because you hear that story a lot. You know, there's a musician that's either playing guitar or bass or whatever. And then they always have their story of, oh, I used to play saxophone or, you know, trumpet or whatever. So in high school, I played trumpet. And then that was kind of the first step towards actually holding or touching a musical instrument. Yeah.
And what made you shift from trumpet to the keys?
Well, my dad was a keyboard player. So he played for, he actually still does play for a group called Tierra out of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And they're a pretty popular band. You know, they had a big part in the Chicano Soul scene in the 70s, and they continue to play around. So there was keyboards all around my house growing up. And it's funny because even at a young age, you know, I'd say around early high school, I kind of knew that you wouldn't really get like much, I don't know, action or work as a trumpet player in a weird way. I mean, there's certain instruments that you see on stage, right? We always see a drummer, we always see a guitar player. Yeah. And then the keyboard, you know, not always a keyboard, but you definitely see more keyboards than a trumpet player. So, and then you combine that with there just being like pianos around, and then wanting to start a band and play music. You know, at that time I was into two-tone music. So there's like songs like One Step Beyond from Madness, and it's real easy to play, you know, for example, like a C minor and go like, so it's real, you feel like you're an accomplished musician when it's just like one chord and a bass line. And so, you know, it's an easy kind of pivot to keyboard player, especially being able to play ska music. You know, I was like, oh, I gotta do this. And, you know, so.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were playing even before you were born, and within months you mastered the keyboard. Miles ahead. So a lot of it is natural talent, and a significant part is practicing.
Yeah, for sure.
There's those two combinations create genius. Like Dan Drummond, he's miles ahead, and he would practice 24/7. John Coltrane is another example. He practiced 24/7. Just practice. Rico, you met Rico. The same thing. Those men, they practice around the clock.
Right.
Was that the case with you?
I think that was just going to happen by nature because of the love for Jamaican music. You know, I can't really stress enough how, you know, even nowadays people will ask me if I give lessons or something. And first of all, I've never have, and I don't really, I probably would never entertain that, just because I always tell them the same answer, which is, listen to the music, just listen to the music. Out of that, you kind of get, that's the teacher, by default. So a lot of it wasn't really like a kind of a mental, I'm going to sit down and rehearse and I have goals of getting better and whatever. That just happened. That was a byproduct of listening to like Jackie or, Jamaican music and just nerding out on it so much to where now it becomes ingrained in you. It's kind of it's definitely a part of your blueprint. And so, I always tell people, I mean, reggae, Jamaican music is one thing I can handle, but if I jump in like some other gig that involves, intricate playing, that's really not my bag. But yeah, I think it's all about being a fan of Jamaican music, every era, and kind of just wanting to, emulate some of those licks or, and after time it happens. It's like anything, you spend enough time with something, by default, it's just going to happen, So, yeah, so it was the OGs that taught me. Yeah.
So you talk about your dad being part of the Chicano Soul scene. For someone who is listening in Australia and perhaps even Jamaica, even right here in Southern California, how do you define the Chicano Soul scene and what exactly is that?
Well, I think it's different parts, right, or different eras. I think I wasn't there obviously back then, but the 70s, it's 60s, all these musics that kind of accumulated and came together, all these bands, or should I say, they kind of had the same thing in mind. It's kind of runs parallels to a lot of movements, like I guess two-tone movement would be a good thing to compare it to, where you got these young bands of musicians that come together and they're very passionate about something and they're playing music for a cause. I think that when it's for a cause, it shows on the music because it's not about the money, it's not about fame. They're actually doing it for a reason. So back in the day, it was more of a Chicano rights kind of thing. It really spilled over to a political kind of feeling. And now we have a big scene of it now, which is different. I don't. I mean, it's always been here. It's not like it's now it's here, the second generation. We live in LA, so there's a huge Chicano kind of culture, but I think now it's more on the side of less politics, actually way less politics. And this runs parallel to the reggae scene nowadays, it's like, it's more of a, how am I nice? How do I be nice about this? Well, it's more of like a fashion thing, and it's more of a music thing. It holds less of the, the meaning behind it, having to be fueled by having a voice, in a time where you don't have a voice. So, but definitely the music is congruent. I think that there's a lot of the same musics and the same feeling, that are happening nowadays with the Chicano Soul thing, and then they did back in the day as well. So,
So who are some of the LA scene keyboardists that inspired you or perhaps influenced you?
I'd say, well, LA, as far as LA goes, I'd say first and foremost, without a doubt, Mr. Destin. When I was a kid, there's only so many bands that you could look up. Well, actually, I take that back. I mean, in the 90s, there was a lot of bands that you could look up to. But I mean, the king of all of them for me is Hepcat. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to, become good friends with a lot of the guys in the band, if not all of them. So Destin is like, man, as a keyboard player, he got it. I think that really all the guys in Hepcat they kind of shared the same definition of being the first to get it right and sound like the guys from Jamaica, because they were kind of doing the same thing. They were just big fans of the music, and it was a byproduct of it. So Destin would do things and you're like, wow, that reminds me of a Jackie lick. Or
he was that good even during the early formation of the band.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got to see his journey progress and between all their albums, from Scientific, Out of Nowhere, Right on Time, You Push and Shove, and just being a big fan of that. I think we're even nowadays, and it continues to happen. You got younger bands like Steady 45s where they're doing stuff that I'm just like blown away from, and then they'll say the same thing. They'll say, well, we would look up to bands like Aggrolites or Hepcat and stuff like that. So it's always fine tuning the fake and Jamaican, if you will, as far as an instrument goes. So Destin's top of my list. I'd say back in the day with California, Matt Parker is a big one because he kind of was the first to incorporate organ and really stick to it in like a third wave ska world. He was playing Farfisa organs back in the day, and really no one was doing that. Actually, that Dan Bower is a huge. Him and Matt shared those kind of sentiments towards trying to sound super authentic. So I take that back. Dan Bower is another hero of mine. I mean, Dynamic Pressure, gee whiz, how could you not? They were the first to kind of venture in that early reggae thing and really do it right. They said, I'm a big fan of Dan, Destin, Matt, Darren Fletcher from Let's Go Bowling. So yeah, I think that back then there wasn't a whole lot of keyboard players to pick from, but growing up, just being a super fan of ska, those guys right there would have to be the Mount Rushmore for me.
Yeah, it's not always easy to be honest and truthful. The question I ask is a tough one. I remember long ago you'd ask Jamaican artists who influence you. Oh, Curtis Mayfield and
right.
But Bob Marley, though, that's one of the reasons why I have so much respect for Bob Marley. When he was asked who is his favorite, oh, it's Dennis Brown, man. He doesn't hesitate, no reservation. Dennis Brown is one of the finest singers in Jamaica. Back then, artists would never say Alton Ellis influenced them, and is one of the finest voices in the 20th century, Alton. But people just weren't into giving credit, to their colleagues. No, it's kind of different. People will say that Dennis Brown, Slim Smith, Alton Ellis, etc., influenced them. But back then, also. But Bob Marley changed that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to give credit to your colleagues, especially because they are your peers. But
they get swell-headed.
I think it's easy to, depending on where you're at with your fight with your ego, death of the ego kind of thing. I think that once you conquer that, then you look forward to giving praise to where it's deserved. So, and then there's some times where it's just your colleagues you honestly are not influenced because you don't share that. It just hasn't happened. You have respect for them, but there's nothing that they really did that kind of influenced you. In my case, like I said, growing up as far as when I got into the ska music thing and being in the 90s, all those gentlemen that I mentioned were already kind of doing their thing. So it was really easy to kind of admire them from afar. And then over the years, up close. So yeah, I continue to learn from all of them too, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Indeed, sir. I wanted to ask you to enlighten us on what exactly is skinhead reggae. That term is being used a lot, and it wasn't popular in Jamaica. As a matter of fact, I think the definition in Jamaica closest was aggro reggae. But what exactly is skinhead reggae?
Well, it's funny, right? Because so I always tell people go to Wikipedia, check it out, because Wikipedia nowadays, that is a nice definition of it. It gets in depth, and then you can go down the rabbit hole of that. And it's a great question because that term just is, shocking to someone who doesn't know. It's like skinhead reggae. Those two words do not go together. During, you had Jamaican immigrants. It's pretty simple. You had Jamaican immigrants come to the UK, young Jamaican immigrants. They bring their music. They befriend the youth in the UK. It just so happens that it's like a working class subculture. It's like the youth coming together on the playground and becoming friends and sharing the same interests. And I think that's where it starts. And that's how the reggae and Jamaican music gets transplanted to the UK, late 60s. And it's just the word skinhead reggae now, it can mean two different things if you want to get in depth. It could mean a certain sound of Jamaican of reggae music, so certain characteristics in the guitar, keyboard, drums, etc. And so you could have a song that came out of Jamaica and go, oh, that's a skinhead reggae song, or for me now I can say, oh, that's skinhead reggae, but in reality it isn't. Now, if you look deeper, skinhead reggae is like, okay, the reggae that kind of for me came out of the UK via that influence. So you had all these bands, not a lot of bands, but you had rather a lot of artists that would record songs that would exclusively come out like on the Palma label and all the subsidiary labels from that. And so there's a unique sound, I guess that's what I'm getting to, is that if you look at 1969 and there's a song that comes out of Jamaica, it just sounds a lot more mature and it sounds musical and less primitive than there's some songs that like were recorded UK reggae in the late 60s and they have this jankiness to them, you know, and there's this kind of crudeness to them. It's still beautiful and it's still recorded in those years. So it sounds organic and it sounds warm, but there's a big difference between, you know, I don't know, let's say something that the Rudies did, like the backing band, the Rudies, than something like the Upsetters did, you know, but both songs can sound skinhead reggae because it's that time, you know, and that's what they're all into. And that's what they're trying to, you know, the guitar patterns, the bubble on the organ. So that's the way I look at it now. You know, when I think of skinhead reggae, it's a very specific sound. Whereas I talk to other musicians or fans and you can kind of say skinhead reggae and it just defines either Jamaica or the UK, but it defines more of a set of years, you know, like 69, early 70s, late 68, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. So it's a sound. So I'm not so clear. I'm sort of still in the dark. So it's a UK sound. Yeah,
I would say it's definitely a UK sound, or the term came from that, from the UK. A lot of these bands, and it essentially was, you know, you got UK artists that kind of want to write music and sound like those records that they were getting from Jamaica at the time. And it just so happens that around, you know, in 69, all those characteristics of the reggae music, because it was called reggae music. It wasn't called skinhead reggae in Jamaica, you know, it's just reggae. It's just the next level of the next stage and wherever Jamaican music was going. You know, it had all those characteristics that made it sound like it sounds. And so, yeah, for me, skinhead reggae is that UK influence on it, you know. It's a unique sound, man. It's like,
so for some mind, because the songs that I looked through, maybe 25 compilations, and they all have Jamaican artists.
Right. And that's true.
Kinhead.
Right, and that's true. I think that's what I was saying earlier, is that that's one way to look at it, is that skinhead reggae is more defined by reggae music that was, you know, being produced and recorded during a certain year, so like 69 rather, that was the height of it. Whereas you could look at skinhead reggae as just the reggae that was being recorded out of the UK at that point, like reggae for skinheads rather, and it was like this more kind of like our thing, you know. It wasn't, like I said, Jamaicans weren't calling it skinhead reggae. The UK, that's where that name came from. So you could tell it's like a little cult thing. It's like a little club, and it still is. You know, when I tour in the UK or in Europe, you know, you have that feeling. You have it over here. We're very fortunate in LA because we have a nice you know, scene of that, and it's like it's like this club feeling. You know, you're a part of something, because the music is an acquired taste for sure. Absolutely.
So Aggrolites.
Yeah.
What year was the Aggrolites from? I know you're the keyboard player. You played a very important role in the band throughout the years. So take us back to the formation for posterity. Exactly what year was the group?
Wow, I'm horrible with years. I'm always horrible with years, and like
in the club.
And for some reason, when someone's like, "Oh yeah, that venue, like what's the capacity?" I'm always horrible at gauging things like that. Anyways, but the years, let's see, I'd say about, you know, early 2000s, so maybe 2001, around there. You know, I mean, yeah, let's just say 2001. If Jesse was here, he'd probably correct me, or maybe I nailed it. I don't know. But yeah, Aggrolites started around there, and it's something that really wasn't like premeditated. You know, it would just kind of happen organically. You know, there was, like I mentioned, dynamic pressure earlier with Dan and Jubal and Zach and the rest of those guys. For me, they're definitely the first band to kind of venture out and want to specifically do a certain sound and chapter in Jamaican music. And so they did exactly what we just got done talking about, which is this kind of like 69 funky reggae. And then, you know, a band called the Rhythm Doctors came out, and then a band called the Vessels came out. And then this kind of magic thing happened where, you know, none of those bands were around anymore. And you got like certain members from all three of those bands that gravitated towards each other, and for whatever reason, you know, crossed paths and started playing music together. Brian Dixon, our original guitar player, kind of, I would say, curated that because I knew him, and he was kind of the me and Jay from the Vessels. Jay's the original bass player, and we came in through that Brian connection. And then Brian and Jesse, the singer, were in a band called, and Corey, the drummer, they were in a band called the Rhythm Doctors. And Dan Bower came in from Dynamic Pressure, and so it started over like a session that we got and we're trying to do for Derek Morgan, believe it or not. The music never came out. It was kind of supposed to be like a whole album, you know, that Derek would sing on, and the music that never, you know, happened. I don't know the exact reason, you know, but I was just super excited to play, you know, with some of these dudes that you know, were my heroes. I mean, we even talked about it earlier, you know, Dan and then I knew the Rhythm Doctors. Not to say that they've been around for years at that time, but I definitely knew who they were. I remember going to Tower Records in Pasadena and buying their album because it was just, you know, the skinhead reggae thing, late 60s reggae thing was still, it was exciting. So for in LA, you know, there wasn't any bands that were really doing it. There were a lot of LA bands that would have one or two songs in their set that dabbled with it, but it wasn't until that moment that you had a band that was fully invested in doing that era, you know? So yeah, I was excited about the Rhythm Doctors. I still think that's a great album, the Rhythm Injection album. And then I was a huge fan of the Vessels. I mean, I was an original member of that band. They asked me to join and they were already established and I was a fan of them. I would go and see them. And then, so yeah, so you got me and Jay, Corey, Brian, Jesse, and then Dan, and that kind of just, you know, you start jamming together and then, well, let's see if we can play a live show. Okay, well, let's see if, and then now, years later, we're here.
Interestingly, you guys have made a lot of contribution over the years. 20.
Thank you.
We rounded after 2 decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, give and take.
Wow. Well, that's, I don't know, that's kind of impossible.
That's a lifetime, man.
Oh, I'm in my late 20s, so I don't know what you mean.
That's all right. So what are some of the challenges and accomplishments of the band? We talk about the formation. We talk about the 2 decades. What's some of the challenges the band has faced over the past? Because you've been together since.
Right, yeah, for sure. I think that as far as challenges go, just the challenge of playing a unique acquired taste kind of music that we've been talking about called skinhead reggae or early reggae. There's not, you know, many hip musics that have like, you know, a grandma organ featured and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
And so I think that's one of the challenges we've had over the years is breaking into certain markets or, you know, being accepted by just a mainstream kind of mentality of music, you know. I mean, nowadays, a lot of bands don't even want that, you know, but I remember when we first started out, you always have those dreams of making it, whatever that is, you know, getting on K-Rock and you have some hits and then now you're headlining huge, you know, world tours. But I mean, in hindsight, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. I'm really stoked and excited about the path that it did take us. So, I mean, that was those are some big hurdles sometimes over the years. We were also fortunate because I think it coincided with, you know, us kind of giving out this acquired taste of reggae music. We didn't specifically play just that. We incorporated all of our influences at the time, which was, you know, soul music and funk music. And I think that allowed for it to be more digestible to certain audiences. And so that's one of the cool things about us is we were able to now cross over to something that's, you know, the moms and dads could potentially like, you know, because there was like an organ in there. And maybe it reminded them of something from the 60s that wasn't even Jamaican, you know, maybe it was like, I don't know, you know, the Doors or whatever, because there's an organ, you know, so there's all these little things that people gravitate towards, even though they might not know the story of Jamaican music. And then, of course, we were with Epitaph Records and Hellcat. So that helped us cross over into that market, which was, you know, the punk rock market, the psychobilly market, a lot of subcultures there. So we were fortunate on the playground. I always like to look at it like a playground. We were able to kind of go dabble and hang out with this group and then go hang out with this group. And So yeah, you get the good and the bad.
And one thing is definite, especially for people who have never actually seen the Aggrolites in concert, is that they would never fall asleep or slip into unconsciousness.
Right.
It will never happen. Aggrolites really and truly bring energy. Whether it's early evening, late morning, it's energy. Energy from Aggrolites.
Thank you.
As I love to call it, Aggro Reggae, since I used to hear that term used in Jamaica to define what is now called skinhead reggae. But I go along with the term skinhead reggae. I'm all right with it. I'm all right with it. Never fall asleep. Any shows coming up we can talk about?
Yeah.
California listeners?
Yeah.
Since I mentioned coming out to see Aggrolites.
I'm not sure. So if this comes out in time, but we're playing this Saturday at Oktoberfest in San Diego, but I'm not sure if this interview will be out or not.
It might just, today's Thursday. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Just in time.
It'll definitely be out in time to mention next Thursday. We are playing a venue called Venice West, which I'm really excited about this venue. I mean, I love everything about it. It's in a cool location. It's a cool venue. It's the people that are running it and in charge of things there are super chill, nice, and generous. So the Aggrolites will be there on Thursday at Venice West. Come out. We've played there twice before, and it's just a great time. Like I said, a lot of times, the venue will kind of set the mood. We start there.
And that's a big factor.
Huge. Not only for it's for the band and the audience, because it's all this energy that's going around in the room. So they have a nice intimate room, but it's not like small. It's
I haven't gone there as yet. Yeah,
right. I went there. I saw the Wailers there, and it was really, really. I mean, I don't really go out to shows because I'm always playing shows, and so I don't really have a lot of opportunity to go and see a band. But one of my friends was there, and he's like, "Come down." And I went down, and the Wailers were amazing, and such a big band, and the place was just so, you could feel the energy, and I know that sounds cliche at times, but you really could, the appreciation, everybody singing the songs. So it's a great venue. Come on out Wednesday or Thursday.
Yes, so we're definitely giving Venice West a plug. They have been featuring quite a bit of reggae act, as a matter of fact, contemporary.
Right.
Right. Not just legends like the Wailers, but contemporary acts. I know Wailing Souls will be playing there. So share with us some music legends who you've from Jamaica now, who you've had the pleasure of working with over the years.
Oh wow, it's a short list. See if I can remember a lot of people. Well, Prince Buster is the first one that comes to mind.
Is it a short list?
Well, it could. Sometimes I forget, because it's been a lot of. I've been very fortunate. I don't want that to come off as like I forget, but to gather all of them together, sometimes it is work, because I'll talk to, for example, Jesse, who is my musical brother, and he'll be like, well, remember we did this with this person. Oh, remember we were in Europe and this person came on stage. So then I'm like, oh shoot, as far as really working with artists, I've been fortunate to be in the backing band of a lot of cool artists. Everybody from, one that just is the top of my list is Prince Buster.
It has to be.
Prince Buster. I mean, gee whiz, the Sierra Nevada show was great for us, and that was magical because it was a certain time in our lives, in our youth, and the hunger we had to sound proper and do Buster justice. It was just there. Everybody was really just, everything worked out at that. It was magical. I remember we backed him at Sierra Nevada, and we were rehearsing in like a barn kind of thing, and we're waiting for Buster to come. We're like kind of rehearsing, killing time, and boom, the barn doors just kind of open, and he comes in and he's just dancing and he's doing his thing, and it's like this magical moment because we're like looking at each other and smiling, and he loved what he was hearing, and so you can't beat that. I think when you're backing an artist, that's the best compliment you can get. I mean, no amount of money or anything else could give you that feeling when they give you that approval, and
especially artists of that caliber.
Right. Right. And their approval comes with the smiles they give. And, I get it. A lot of times you got the artists that don't want to just go, oh my gosh, I love you guys, because it's a weird thing. You know, you got Jamaican artists. A lot of them get it now. But it's a weird thing to come to LA if you've never experienced it. If you're a Jamaican artist and you might have had your hits and your heyday was back in the day. Now you come to LA and you see this group of like young musicians that sound like the way they sound. You know, I mean, not to toot our own horn as far as LA musicians, but my gosh, we're so fortunate.
Well, you know, I think we should begin to toot horns because all the musicians. I remember one Altonelli's early recording. Rehearsal. He said, "Man, you guys are so good. Just give me the intro and the outro. We don't need the middle."
Right.
I don't need to sing. Just the outro and the intro. I didn't know you guys were so good in LA. No, the word is out. Yeah, the word. I mean, you know, we're talking about some 4 decades now.
Right,
so
right.
Musicians been playing Jamaican music. So LA is really the spot for early Jamaican music in the United States.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's something in the water here. Yeah. Alton Ellis, quick story about that. I was in the backing band and we backed him. Is for the Fonda shows, which by the way, those Fonda shows, oh my gosh, those are legend. I talk about those shows to people. I find at least once a month it feels like, because I always tell people those are some golden days that I, in hindsight, you know, they should have been packed out, because my gosh, if you look at those rosters, it's insane, right? So the Alton Ellis backing band, I was fortunate enough to be in there, and I remember we were rehearsing at Chris Murray's house. He comes in, and I was with the Expander crew, right? So the Expanders were playing, and we rehearsed the songs. We got the list, and he comes in, and he was just kind of like, and we're in awe, and he just goes, "All right, you know, Keezy," and he was straight to me, and he said, "This is what we're doing. We're opening up like this," and he opens up his set with the song "Willow Tree," which is an amazing rocksteady song. But he opens it up in like a unique way. He goes, "It's going to be you and me. You're going to hit the note. You're going to give me my key. And then I'm going to come walk out. It's going to be you and me." So it'll be like this ballad kind of thing. You know, he'll be, you know, "Don't cry for me." And I'm like playing keyboard alongside it, comping with him. And I was like ready to have a heart attack, you know, because it's like, dude, there's so much potential to jack that up, you know, so everything went well, you know, and then the whole band comes in, and it's just a very powerful thing. So
that's the rehearsal, you know, that's the rehearsal I was talking about.
That was nerve-wracking for me, but I was happy when the band came in.
That was the rehearsal I was talking about at Chris Murray's house.
Right.
Yeah. And he's not an easy guy to please, but he was very pleased with what he saw.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
So
I remember he brought Christopher Ellis.
Yeah, kudos to the California musicians who have been preserving the integrity of this music for so many decades, you know.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So what was it like recording and performing for Tim Armstrong at the Poets live album, or the Poets live?
Yeah.
Poets live album. Yeah.
It was really cool. I think every member in the Aggrolites had a unique take on it, right? Because I was the only guy that really was in the band that didn't come from a punk environment. You listen to a lot of these guys' stories on how they got into Jamaican music, and a lot of them, the majority of them, have that kind of route they took that involves punk rock music or some form of punk, because that word punk, it means a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of errors. So for me, I knew who Tim was. I knew who Rancid was, because, you know, they had the hits on K-Rock and whatnot. And I went in there with a definite level of respect, but I didn't go in there with a certain level of, like, I guess you'd call it like fanboy or something, you know, where you're just like nervous around, you know. If anything, I was nervous around Tim because I knew, I found out quickly that he was just a really good songwriter and cool dude to be around. So everybody, I know Jay and Jesse and Brian, the guys at that time.
And those are bandmates you're talking about.
Yeah, the bandmates. Yeah, they were listening to punk rock music, and they were kind of, they had an appreciation for Tim on a different level, you know. So my appreciation for him came on just how effortless he was able. We were going to the studio, and he'd get the guitar, and he would just kind of strum out a song, and he'd play it, and essentially, that's the song, and then he'd be like, "All right, now go and make it Aggrolites, you know, make it your own." And that's what it was. It was really a guitar strum. There was no rhythm. there was rhythm, but there was no like, it didn't dictate, okay, we're gonna do this like a pop top rhythm, we're gonna do this like a, you know, a Studio One kind of thing, we're gonna do this like a Treasure Isle kind of thing. It was up to us to incorporate that and digest it, and it was cool because I do remember at the time there wasn't a lot of thought that went into that specific moment, whereas nowadays I might overthink, okay, where are we going to take this? At that moment, it was more organic. It was like we just got in the studio and jammed it out. Okay, those are the chords. Let's just jam it out. You know, okay, let's change this. And then it morphs into, it fine tunes itself into an actual rhythm. And so all the songs went like that. It was just very, very, very effortless and organic. I think that Tim caught us at a good time because it was right before we recorded our second album, our self-titled album. So he kind of got all the juice and the mojo that, I mean, the second album was great and I'm very proud of that one too. But he definitely caught us at a good time. You know, we were really into that project.
Right. So we're going to talk about link with songwriters and musicians. So I'm going to start with Jason Mraz.
Yeah, Jason Mraz. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a trip, man, because
in what sense?
Oh, in the sense that he's a very famous artist. I don't like to use the word pop, but I guess, you know, he's just a really good singer-songwriter pop artist. It's very famous. It's made a name for himself in the world of just music in general, worldwide. I mean, he has, if you don't think you know who Jason Mraz is or familiar with this music, trust me, you are, because this music is being played every single time I go out. I hear a Jason Mraz song. I'm just like, that's crazy. I went on tour with this gentleman. He's a trip because you got an artist like that, and there's so much room to stick to what you've been doing and just stay in your corner and in your lane and continue being successful and make money or whatever in that lane. But he chose to venture out and kind of dabble into the reggae thing, and not just like a fake, you know, I'm gonna do some kind of generic reggae thing. It was important for him to get like the right producer and that kind of domino effect into the right musicians to be involved. And so he every single day I would learn more from his story with reggae music. And we had him interviewed him for the Podclash, and it was so funny because he was shouting out tunes that I was like, whoa, you know that tune? So he was like, yeah, like Papa Top, for example, the original version of it was Fat Man by Derek Morgan. And there's a lot of versions of that song, you know, hey, you fat man. And so there's a Papa Top version where it's like, on the organ. And the song's called Papa Top. And it's funny because when I talk to other musicians, that's the way I describe that rhythm is a Papa Top kind of thing. But anyways, he knew about that tune, and he was like telling me stories about how, like, when he was young, you know, his family, they had like Trojan compilations and stuff like that on record. And so he was introduced to that stuff at a young age too. And that might've been, you know, what got him to have this love for reggae music. You could take any one of his songs and it's easily it could easily morph into a reggae song just like that. And I think that's kind of something that's subconscious, maybe when he writes music, you know, like I said, you can't help but certain things be part of your blueprint as a musician and songwriter, and all your influences kind of come out whether you like it or not. So that's why he was a trip to me, is because,
nice,
you know, I had one view of what he was about before I got to work with him. And then, I mean, he's just an amazing guy. And besides the music, he really is a genuine dude. Like, he isn't faking the funk there. Like, I got Jason's back hardcore. He's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that glorious Papa Top rhythm was really song was as a soda commercial. And
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Massive in Jamaica, from coast to coast. So they just put it into a song, and now the rest is history.
Wow.
But I think they borrowed extensively from Derek Morgan.
Yeah, right.
The foundation baseline, the blueprint of Derek Morgan.
Right.
So back to Jamaica again. Chronixx. We can talk a little bit about.
Yeah, for sure. Chronixx has become kind of the homie. So I reached out to Chronixx years ago because I really, really enjoyed what he was doing as far as the new school, I guess, you know, new school Jamaica. You got a lot of these young artists a Kabaka, Jesse Royal, Protege, Chronixx, Leela, Coffee, all these young artists that are kind of creating this scene. They have been, it's nothing new. But when I first heard Chronixx, there was something different. You could tell that he had the respect for like early Jamaican music. And it kind of ran parallels into like, let's say America, where you have like an indie rock group that has the appreciation to 70s American music or something, they're at that right age to where they can listen to the old school stuff and hear it different. Because like I was talking to you guys earlier, like I feel like Jamaican music's always been, just innovative. They never really have gone back, and I think that's a big reason why you got bands like Hepcat or Aggrolites that really don't play in Jamaica. We've never played in Jamaica. So Chronixx gets it. And it was important for me to kind of build some kind of relationship with him, because I think it'd be really, really cool. And we're kind of working on some stuff that I can't get too into, but I think it'd be really cool to kind of emerge both worlds. You got a lot of musicians here in LA that kind of dig and get off on producing an authentic sound. And that's that's my MO, here at the studio, and things I work on is really trying to, create a sound that pays homage and tips its hat off to not only just the way the song is written, but actually how it sounds, the texture of it. And it was important for me to link with him, because I think if you marry both of those worlds, something special could come out of it. So yeah, I sent him some tracks that I worked on years ago, and he gravitated towards them. And so we've been working together. A lot of cool stuff that I'd love to talk about, but can't just yet. So keep your ears open, and there'll be some.
Yes, sir.
It'll be stuff that people have never heard, as far as Chronixx voice being on top of, and I think that his audience will be like, this is just, it'll be a trip. Yeah.
I think your answer covered it. I was going to ask you to explain who Chronixx is, but I think you incorporated that in your
man.
In your
such a great talent. Yeah, great talent, great voice.
Right,
yeah.
Right. The pilgrimage that you took to Jamaica had nothing to do with your connection with
No.
Chronixx, right?
No, none.
You were recent in Jamaica. I saw a video all over social media.
Right.
Yeah, I think you went with First Cut to
yeah.
King
So that was a very unique trip. I don't like to spread myself thin, but I like to be a part of different projects. I think the synergy that you get with working with different groups of musicians is important. So the First Cuts is a project that really, there was X amount of time invested in that project. There's Chris Dowd from Fishbone, Blake Coley from the Lions, and it was us three. It's our kind of project, and so it kind of was birthed out of just creating some music in the studio, putting out a 45. We had a 45 out on my label, Rivas Records. It was Didn't I Always, which Cornell Campbell did the original, and that went off great. And Chris Dowd, being the just having the history that he has, and being as connected as he is, it one day says, I got this producer out of Jamaica that is interested in the First Cuts, and he wants to record a music video. And initially you're like, what? Like, this is so weird, and you kind of go with the flow. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. Hey, sign me up. And I don't really invest too much into it at the moment. And then the ball gets rolling, and before you know it, the assistant is asking information because they're getting plane tickets. Next thing you know, we're in Jamaica. So we shot a music video to a song called Rude Girl that Chris Dowd wrote, and we recorded here at my studio. And we recorded about 5 tunes that they're not out yet, but Rude Girl was one of those songs. And so I think that's what it was, is, Chris kind of had these tunes, and it got in the hands of a producer named Johnny Wonder, who he's a very accomplished producer. Skilly Bang is one of the cats he's working with now, and that guy is super popular, and he's working with DJ Khaled and all kinds of stuff. So he's connected. But we went, and we were in a nice Airbnb, and I've never been to Jamaica, so that was like, take me, just yes, please. Shot a music video on the beach, and
what was it like working with Jammys himself?
So that was another, right? That wasn't the intention. It was kind of like, okay, we were there. Johnny Wonder was connected to Jammy because he had years of working with him, you know. So for me, I was like, man, I wanted to do all the tourist stuff that you see, all the pictures when people go, you know, I want to go, even though there's a lot of the things that aren't there anymore or not functioning, but I want to go to Channel One. I want to go to where Treasure Isle was at. You know, we didn't have enough time to do all that because we were working. But the one thing that we really was cool that we did have time for was Johnny was like, well, we can go to Jammy's. And Jammy had heard the Rude Girl song. And that's the thing. I think there's a fair amount of Jamaicans that don't even know what's cracking on this other side of the world in LA, you know, and why should they? You know, you have to go and do your research to find out, okay, you have this crew of people that are doing Jamaican music, you know, justice over here, and they're sounding like rocksteady music from back in the day. So Jammy was like, whoa, he's all over it. And he's like, yeah, tell those boys to come down to the studio. And it kind of just happened real fast. And next thing, it was so dope to pull up to, you know, we're in Waterhouse District, and just to pull up to Jammy's, to see Jammy, and to really, and next thing you know, now all the instruments are out and we're kind of playing tunes. And it was, here's the really cool part about that moment is, I mean, besides seeing all the reel-to-reels and all that stuff, as soon as we started playing and jamming, so we had Chris Brennan on guitar from Expanders, Rise Roots, Solutionaries, you know, Blake on drums, Chris Dowd from Fishbone, myself, and as soon as we started playing, Jammy smiled, because we're like in a certain pocket at that point. We're not sounding like any other band that you would have come in and play reggae, that, you know, a lot of people think reggae is just kind of generic sound. We had our flavor to it, which happened to be by chance, you know, those things that they did back in the 60s, the nuances. So the ad libs that Chris would do on guitar, or the ad libs that I would do on keyboard, you could just see Jammy smile because it kind of takes him back. And by no way are we sounding, you know, putting us on the pedestal like the Supersonics or anything like that. But there's certain things that we would do that would just, he would never hear from a musician that was in Jamaica. So that was really cool to see. Like I said, when the original artists are smiling, that's the reward, and it pays off because you're kind of, you know, just flattered by it. So that was amazing. And I will say the Jammy studio is just so, it sounds so good. Like, you know, as someone who's trying to be that guy and wear that hat as far as having a studio and being a producer and engineer over the years, you know, you're dealing with different rooms and studios, but I don't think I've ever been in a room where the sound, like you could put any song on and the sound just sounds so good. Like huge speakers that you could be in front of and the speaker could be blaring in your ear and you're not aggravated by it. Like it's just sound and it feels powerful. Where usually there'd be like a frequency that you're like, I got to get out of here. It's too, you know, like a 2K frequency or 1K that our ears hate. His stuff was so finely tuned that all you got from it was like a perfect punch in the face because it was loud. So anyways, that's what I take from his studios. Amazing. I wanted to party in there, you know, I wanted to put on a playlist, but yeah.
So since we're talking about studio, you're in your studio. What are the dreams and aspirations for the Rivas Studio? The one you're presently sitting in.
Yeah. I think that, you know, over the years, I've had different ideas of where I wanted to kind of do with it. But I think I settled in where this is kind of just a playground for you know, writing music, recording music that is with friends of mine or people I know. You know, I know when I first had the idea of having a studio, I think everyone does, you're kind of thinking, oh, I'll get bands to come from all over the world and record and have you know, a signature sound there and like a Motown or a Studio One. But I think it's morphed into more of a, you know, just a playground to write music and kind of fine tune and perfect music and do things. And I have recorded bands here, you know, we recorded a couple of Delirium's albums here and stuff like that. But it's kind of like a small museum for me because everything in here is in here for a reason. I kind of, you know, some people collect baseball cards and some people collect whatever. And I really geek out and nerd out on certain pieces of equipment that they used in Jamaica. So you have all kinds of, for example, organs that, every single one of those organs or keyboards.
And you're selling them, right?
Huh?
You're selling.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah, exactly. It's a package deal. It's a package. I'll get you a good deal. But yeah, so those keyboards are right there, or like, there's a lot of outboard equipment that's like in that rack right there. And every single one of those, the reason I got them is because, they were in a studio in Jamaica, whether it's Channel One, whether it's a keyboard that was, in Treasure Isle, or stuff like that, effects units. So anyways, I love, it's just kind of a, like I said, baseball card collecting thing. And so that's what it's been. It's just kind of been like a little playground for me to have fun in,
Fantastic. And you're really having fun. This is a question that I guess I should have asked you earlier. There's no time limit. Jackie Me Too, Winston Wright, your favorite. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I got that earlier. We didn't want to spend the whole time talking about those two, because I think we can do an entire show on Winston and Jackie.
Yeah. I would say this. It's that, to answer that question. Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? I mean, it really is. I wake up one morning and I could say Winston on this morning and then Jackie on this morning. For me, they take 50-50, a half of the pie. There really is no. I'd say when I first started off, it was a Jackie Me Too thing, but then Winston Wright is it's like, wow, man, I have conversations with some of the collectors that really are nerds on that era of reggae, and Winston Wright was so like, he's like a painter, his way of playing is so, it's like a piece of art, whereas Jackie, it's still art, but it's a different, he brings something different to the table. It's more of a Booker T kind of thing and more of a funky, soulful kind of thing. The cool part is they're really different from each other. There really is no doubt about it. If you hear one of their recordings, who it is. It's not like, oh, I got them confused. They really have their own characteristics and what they brought to Jamaican music. So I love them both equally. Right.
And for the newcomers, who are these gentlemen I just asked you about? Jackie Me Too.
Jackie Me Too. They're both legendary organists and keyboard players out of Jamaica. Jackie Me Too, being a huge part, not only in the Aggrolites and in the Studio One stable, but he wrote so much music as a musical director. Him, Leroy Sibbles, certain artists that were musical directors in a sense of the Studio One and Aggrolites, Soul Brothers, Sound Dimension. It tends to be the keyboard player, but yeah, there's so many rhythms and stuff that he wrote, and he was a part of an important part of the foundation of writing that song. Winston Wright, Treasure Isle, his kind of claim to fame was he played keyboards and session work for Treasure Isle, Supersonics with Tommy McCook. So he kind of came more of the rocksteady era, whereas Jackie started in the ska era.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, but both legendary organists out of Jamaica.
Right. And I think, Winston, not sure if he was credited for that, a song that has been used for many decades now in England by one of those football teams.
Oh, Liquidator, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's such a, that song's so special because not only is it a great song, but I also, just hearing the recording of it and the sonic and then the texture of the song, that's important too, right? When we listen to a song, it makes us feel a certain way because of not just the words that are sung or the melody, but like how it was recorded at that moment. And I think with a song like that, especially because it's an instrumental song, and the song we're talking about is Liquidator, Harry J. Allstars, Winston Wright on keyboard. Now you gotta times it by 2 because you have no lyrics now, so you don't really have that opportunity to move people by lyrics. And that instrumental song has become huge. Like you said, it's I think Chelsea, the football team Chelsea, uses it as
right.
Yeah.
Well, the template for that song was by a guy called What Am I to Do Now?
Right.
There's a lot of story behind Tony Scott.
Yeah. And then
that was the template.
Right.
Then the Liquidator.
And then the Staple Singers, right? They got I'll take it from
it. Producer was in Jamaica and heard Tony Scott, and wow, he loved the bass line.
Right. And then I think
from Alton Ellis,
Girl I Got a Date. Yeah.
Right. That was really the template. Alton Ellis over Treasure Isle. Girl I've Got It.
Right.
Then it was borrowed by Harry J. whoever produced that. Well, I heard the song was brought to Harwich by the producer and singer.
Right.
Then came the third chapter, Liquidator. But I know for a fact that the original was really and truly alternatist. Girl, I've got it. Without saying, right. Staple Singers, they were in, his management was in Jamaica, heard the song and borrowed it. Not sure. So who do you pay for royalty? I'm not sure. It's so many questions.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. So how about some of the other musicians in Jamaica? For instance, Glenn Adams, a lot of work with the Hippie Boys and Lee Scratch Perry. He has some wicked horn key riffs.
Yeah. Glenn Adams, for me, there's different tiers, right? So Jackie and Winston, definitely top tier. Not to take away from any other guys, but you got Glenn Adams, Neville Hines is another organ player, Lloyd Chalmers. Who else? Some of these guys.
Gladdy Anderson, I think he was classically trained.
Gladdy Anderson, there you go. I mean,
Less is endless, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And Gladdy, I always looked at as the piano player, but I would put Gladdy up there with the first tier of guys that are just they're almost making a name for themselves on the style they play. Glenn Adams is a great example of someone who, because he wasn't a shredder, right? Glenn Adams is
so he just by accident.
Right, exactly. But the lines that he came up with, for example, there's a song called Live Injection. And that's another huge dance floor banger. Yeah. It just grooves so much. And I guess you would say it's kind of artistic and poetic because the way he slides and stuff, right? He's like, it's kind of like, all right, I'm not going to be a shredder, but I am going to give you some cool stuff. And that's a great example of an influence. For example, if I'm on the Aggrolites or doing stuff, I'll take from that, just slides and you be more animated with it, as opposed to an intricate solo, but do stuff that's rhythmically. If you listen to that song specifically, Live Injection, there's a part, I can't even sing it because it's like a double tongue thing, but it's like the organ's doing this like really fast syncopated thing. And I, over the years kind of taken that as well, where you can, it's just being more animated with it. You're really not playing a series of notes. You're playing the same notes, but in a percussive way. So yeah, Glenn Adams is great.
And I think only a producer like Lee Scratch Perry put out a song like that.
Yes, I think that all the music he put out was meant to be put out by his stable. Yeah.
Two creative genius.
Right.
Yeah. Him and Glenn Adams. What a combination, sir.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what a combination. Pavlov Black is up there too.
Oh
he
yeah.
Took over from Jackie when he left Studio One.
Right.
I'm not sure if took over is the right way to describe his work at Studio One.
Right. There's so many musicians that don't get, the notoriety, and there's these moments where the bands shift and morph. If we talk Studio One, you got obvious Aggrolites, but then when the Soul Vendors and the Soul Brothers, and then Tommy left, and you have all these musicians that they're not household names, but they're on a lot and they're played a big part in those transitional moments, because not only were the bands changing, but the music was changing too. That listen to that 69 sound really was only there for a year. Sometimes we take for granted, like Rocksteady wasn't around for that long, and I'm still hearing new Rocksteady songs every now and then. So
not that we're necessarily taking from other musicians, but if I were to pick two musicians and not including Bob Marley, say Dan Drummond, and Jackie Mittoo, those are guys who work around the clock. So their name will be, on the reggae, in the Reggae Book of Eternity, or Ska Rocksteady Book of Eternity.
Right.
You have to put the time in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right. You have to put the time.
You can't take that away from them, for sure.
Yeah, that's Aggrolites what 2 years and look how many songs Dan Drummond wrote and recorded. So
Don Drummond, man. How much of a make-believe character is there? Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't imagine if Don Drummond was still with us or whatnot, or seeing him, it's just so make-believe to me. It's so special, his story and his compositions, and he was a huge ingredient in them having that sound.
Well, he was the main ingredient.
Yeah, the main ingredient. Think about that. Yeah, you're right. Before Jackie, he's the original.
Well, Jackie didn't find his own place until after.
Right.
The horn guy run out every other instrument.
Right, because he was young. He was young.
Not necessarily age, but I'm saying the horns.
The horns, good call. Yeah,
right from the late 50s.
Good call. Yeah,
Dan died. It was just the horns.
Yeah, the horns.
I mean, Jackie started bubbling now, rocksteady and early reggae. That's when they started shining.
I will tell you this though, Jackie found a way to stick his head out amongst.
Oh, there's of course.
Did you have like songs like Killer Diller and but you're right. That era, it was all about the horns and the ska tunes were so horn based. You don't really have a lot of songs that were like you hear a keyboard solo. It just that was the rhythm and that was it. You know. You're right about that. And then Jackie.
That's one of the things I like about Duke Reid. That even after he didn't cut shortcut, he still wanted a lot of horns during the rocksteady era. Even some other producers on the scene were using less horn because it was less expensive, less costly to bring in a lot of horns. He still wanted that horn section, and still kept that throughout the rocksteady era.
Yeah, important.
Yes, of course. I still love the horns.
Oh, yeah.
But we're gonna bring in our producer Eric Cola.
Yeah, Eric.
Yes, I think you guys met somewhere along the line.
Well, yeah, and Roger, I've been enjoying this. You glossed over what was so when Junior asked you, amazing job by the way, Junior, as always. Glad to be back side by side. But Roger, when Junior asked you biggest accomplishments for the Aggrolites, I think what you meant to say is when the Rockery.
Oh yes, of course.
John and I were managing you all. I mean, clearly, right? That's what you were.
That's what I was waiting for. That. That's got to be like the big, like you're saving it because it's the big. Of course, and all kidding aside, I can't remember I met you guys obviously through early days and then you guys doing Reggae Nucleus, and then I remember Club Scavo with Junior. But I remember that when we were in cahoots with each other, the Rockery, and you and Sean are not only just good people, but working with you guys was super important for us because we were kids. I mean, we're still kids, but that was super,
we had some fun
to kind of mold us, a little bit. So love you guys.
It was a wonderful time, and shout out to Sean Heidkemper. So Roger, some additional questions. As if you weren't busy enough, a few years ago, you started playing and you are now a permanent member of a fixture on the California reggae scene, another fixture, right? Aggrolites being one, but Beach Dub Allstars.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be such a part of a band that really helped define the California sound, right? Being an extension of Sublime. What does it mean to you?
Well, it's kind of funny because, and I tell these guys nowadays without any reservations because I'm cool with them, but I never grew up with the Sublime. Like I was talking about punk rock earlier, I wasn't really a fan. I didn't come from that era where I was banging Sublime all the time. I knew Santeria and some of these songs on the radio, but the average Sublime fan is a fan. Like they know everything that they put out. So again, coming into that world, when I was asked by Michael Miguel, the guitar player, to come jam with them, it wasn't this whole like starstruck thing. It was like I respected what they do, and I knew who they were, the musicians, and I knew the story. But especially having had playing with them all these years and seeing the fans and seeing the connection and getting to learn that this thing goes really, really deep. And then just hearing the stories they have about each other and all the stories that you hear about Brad and there's times where it does hit me where I'm like, wow, this is such a trip because Sublime is huge, worldwide huge, and Brad was an amazing talent, and they all played an important part, and they were all different parts in this thing that happened. So I'm very appreciative of having to have played with Beach Dub Allstars for all these years, and also just being able to learn from them because people like Marshall Goodman, you got Opie, you got Miguel, all these guys can teach you something without even teaching you something. Like, for example, they've been in the business so long that I'm learning them from them by default. Miguel, for example, he's an accomplished producer and engineer, and his views on things he never comes off as like, I'm going to teach you something, or he's preachy. It's just he's talking, and I pick up on certain things and the way his outlook on things. And that's so valuable. Like, I can't even explain how valuable it is, because you're just getting free knowledge, and they've been there, they've done that. Like, Miguel has been there in the studio when they're recording these sublime hits, and so there's it's like this magic dust that still is on him, where it's like, wow, you get to see that world, and Marshall Goodman creating this beat, he created this certain beat that it's really hard to create something nowadays, whether you're a band or whatever, because everything's been done. I think that when bands come out, they're just influenced by many different things, but they're not creating, they are creating their own sound, but it's like there's really nothing new. And so for Marshall to have this unique drum pattern that fit really good with what Brad and Bud was doing, Eric, wow. So anyways, I think I appreciate that more, is being able to call those dudes like the homies, and learning from them as individuals, and of course the music is so dope because it's different than anything I do in the whole OG reggae thing. So it's cool to and it just exercise those, like that kind of energetic in a different way.
You have 1 foot and one
right
in the other. But what's on the horizon for Long Beach Dub Allstars?
Oh, right now as we speak, we were in the studio, we did all this new music. It's really cool because it's really different than anything they've done. I did the last album with them as well, and that was more along the lines of, okay, it's different, but it still was kind of had the flavor of what you expect from Long Beach Dub Allstars. This new album is just so eclectic, so I'm super stoked for people to hear it. But we're in the stages of kind of figuring out where it's going to live as far as when it comes out and stuff like that. So songs are there, they're mixed, they're really cool, and I can't wait for people to hear them. And then that's where we're at with it. We're kind of laying low as far as shows. Hopefully 2023 we'll kind of see new music and more show opportunities. So.
And who are the current members of Long Beach Dub Allstars?
So you have Miguel Happel on guitar, and he's like I said, played a huge part in all the Sublime albums, and as a producer, his part with molding those huge hits that Sublime had. Opie, who's been the singer of Long Beach Dub Allstars forever. Ed Campworth, who he's playing a bass player. He's legend in the OC. I mean, he's been around for so long. Played with all kinds of bands and stuff like that. He was like in Neville Staples' band. He was at I'm trying to think of all the bands he was in, but that Orange County scene, Ed Campworth, let's see, I'm on keyboards. You have Tim Wu on saxophone. Tim Wu is OG Long Beach Dub Allstars. He was in Pocket Lint, if you guys remember Pocket Lint back in the day. With Pocket Lint, what a dope band. I think they're before their time, to tell you the truth. Who else is in the band? Gil Sharon. Gil Sharon's playing with us right now. Gil Sharon is next level, next level. I mean, he how are you a 10 at playing like with Marilyn Manson and Bush, and then you're a 10
I know
playing ska and reggae music. Like usually it's like a 10 and a 6 or a 6 and an 8. Gil's insane. So he's an important part of what the music we did, and it's a really cool bunch of dudes. That band is a true all-star band, and I feel from the outside looking in that they've always kind of morphed, and they're a family first and foremost. They're a family. They've known each other for years, and so I get used to the family bond, as you would say, and so it's a kind of it's a beautiful thing because you never know what you're gonna get. It's like the sound's always keeping you on your toes.
Well, but I also love what you bring to it too with your.
I don't think it's by accident you're in the band. I think it's by design. They know you're a good player.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, but you're not supposed to toot your horn.
But we can.
No tooting the horns. We gave up the horn a long time ago. Trumpet. No the horn.
All right. We'll hit your keys.
Yeah, exactly.
So Aggrolites have toured around the world. I know how hard you all have worked playing over the years, country upon country, also supporting a lot of different bands. So we're gonna play a little game here for a second. I'm gonna mention a band that I know that you all have toured with, supported, whether it's here domestically or across the pond. Mention a word or two that first comes to mind about them.
Okay.
All right, ready?
I like it.
We're not on a clock, but Madness. What can you say about
Nutty? I mean, they truly are nutty when they started off, and they're still nutty now. Nutty.
Yeah, because they were one of the biggest overseas, right? Early on that you all supported.
They were a huge part in our success in the UK. I remember we played UK and like 5 people came out, and then we did this whole tour with Madness throughout the UK, and then now we're packing the venues, you know, and all the two-tone legends know about us through. A lot of it goes to Lee Kicks Thompson, the saxophone player from Madness, who kind of came across us, and he bigged us up, and next thing you know, we're on a whole tour with them. So yeah, and I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah,
how could you not be? Yeah.
All right. Flogging Molly.
Oh my gosh, Guinness. That's the first word that comes to mind. You know, we when we toured with Flogging Molly, it was at a perfect time to where, you know, we were at a certain age where it was, and a lot of these tours are hard. We would go on tours where we're going against the grain here. You know, I mean, Dropkick Murphys, Flogging Molly, some of these bands, their audience wants to see them, and so you got to kind of be very brave to go out there and expect the beer bottles be thrown at you. I mean, it was cool because we didn't get that too much. But Flogging Molly, we were young, and I remember just party every night, you know. And Dave King is a legend; they all are, you know. And so Guinness would be a word. A lot of party, yeah.
Scatolites.
Legends. I mean, it sounds cliche. I get it, but they're just like, you know, Studio One Motown. You know, you have these backing bands that define that sound. It's not just Berry Gordy, or it's not just Cox and Dodd. It's the almost more so the bands, the house band rather, because that's what it was. It was a house band, and all these, you know, singers would come through. I tell people this all the time. It's really hard for us to listen to a song like Simmer Down, whatever, take any song, and we like that song and we give credit to the singer or the artist, and we should. A lot of times, yeah, I get it. That piece of the pie, the reason why I'm so stoked about this song is because of the singer. But there's a lot of music that
absolutely
it's the band, you know, it's the band that's making it sound like that. It's the band that's making you move.
Would not have been Simmer Down without the
exactly. And I mean, you know, sometimes that gets overlooked, but times that by hundreds of tunes for them.
Yeah,
so
and it's like Scatolites gave all these guys from the country who had a voice, and perhaps write a song or two. They gave them wings to fly.
Exactly.
Great way to put it.
Wings to fly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, very well said. Social Distortion.
Oh man, Mike Ness. I'd say, shoot, that's a good one. I'm trying to think.
We can come back to that one.
No. The one that sticks out is admiration and respect. And I'd say it's opposite. Mike Ness had that for us because
I saw that in action.
Oh, there you go. And like I said, Social Distortion, when I was in high school, my homies loved and worshiped Social Distortion. I didn't come from that camp, but we would play with them, and Mike Ness, that's another going against the grain audience a little bit, kind of. And he would every night, you know, give us respect on the mic, and it wasn't fake. He really did have the respect, you know, what we were doing and who we were paying homage, you know, to Jamaican artists and all that. So hats off to Mike for having us on those. Yeah.
Slackers.
Oh, homies. Another example of someone you look up to growing up, and then you're fortunate to where over the years they become your friends. And that's a really weird thing. You know, they say like never meet your heroes and stuff like that. And I guess I've had moments in my life where that's kind of true, but for the most part, it's just, I think it makes those friendships that much more in depth, because, you know, you've known about them and you know A, B, C, and D about them even before you've met You know, you're looking at them like, and they don't know who you are, but I'm a kid respecting them. Same thing with Hepcat, same thing with all these bands. And so, and I will say, definitely the hardest working modern ska band out there. I mean, by far over the years, they've toured so much more than any band that I could think of.
Somebody recently described them as the Grateful Dead of the ska scene.
Oh my gosh. And the thing is that, you know, they're like any band, they're morphing over the years. It's what's going to happen, but it's such a beautiful kind of like transition to where they go next and next and next, because you get to see, you know, not only in the songwriting, but in the stage show, you know, and the one thing that stays congruent and never changes is their genuine love for performing and writing new music. And there's just amazing dudes off stage too, you know, so many cool moments with them on tour. So
yeah, 100% true. Vans Warped Tour.
Oh, hot. You don't, if you're a musician doing the Vans Warped Tour, you don't do that tour if you're at a certain age. You need to be at a certain age to do that tour, because you can get bruised up easily. You know, you're out there every day. It's hot. It's grueling. You're not getting sleep. You got to load your own equipment, wake up. You don't know what time you're playing each day. Very random. It's only meant for a certain amount of, it's like a circus. It's a circus. It's meant for the freak show. You know, you gotta go. And, you know, I don't regret doing it. It's like, I remember, I think Jesse said it, someone said it, where it's that, like, the worst tour you've ever been on and the best tour you've ever been on. You know, it's like two extremes of just.
Great way to put it. Yeah, when I did the 3 dates with you all on the bus, I could only take 3 dates, and you all did so many.
There's bands that do that, and it's still the van and trailer, and we're fortunate. We were like, no, we're gonna need to get a bus for this one.
Right. Yeah. You all had a chance, I think, throughout the UK. You met Don Letts, and he DJ'd some events, right? Some of the tour dates. Talk about interacting with Don.
I mean, that was another opportunity to really soak up, because, you know, Don's one of those guys that there's certain people that, you know, it's just, they're a book of stories. You know, they have, you know, the bro down's going to be cool. So that's what we were looking forward to, is kind of just, we're fans of him and his whole story, but his whole part in the, you know, with the Clash. Again, I didn't come from that school where I was a huge Clash fan, but nonetheless, you didn't need to be. He has, you know, he's made a name for himself even outside of the Clash. So, and the way he looks at music too, like you two, right? Us three, we could easily shoot the shit for hours upon hours upon hours. And I know we have at random places and times in our life, but there's certain people that, you know, are passionate about certain things, and that you can bond with them on that. And he's definitely one of those. And he's another one that, you know, you're kind of waiting for him to see you play live, because you know he's going to get a kick out of it, you know, and he did, and he respected what we did, and it's that mutual love and respect. And yeah, he also, here's the big part about Don. A lot of artists, they just they don't keep up with the times. And I never want to be like one of those guys that's like older, and I just can't, you know, figure out what the kids are doing nowadays. And how do you navigate as an artist, right? Trying to keep up with that. He has successfully done that.
Yeah.
He's DJing all around the world. He's always consistently been at a certain level as an artist. And then that in itself is, you know, hats off to him, because that's not easy to do. You know, I think that a lot of people will get to a certain age in their career and just go, I'm not relevant anymore.
Right.
You know? Right. But he's maintained his relevance.
Yeah, his contributions for sure. Yeah. Roger, you recently collaborated and did some work with John Roy and Smoke and Mirror Sound System.
Yeah, man.
Talk about that project.
John is an amazing human. He is he really is. His love and he has no agenda, zero agenda for that whole project that kind of was birthed out of the quarantine and all that. It was nothing but love. It was a labor of love for him. I mean, he put his blood, sweat, tears, money all in that project. And I didn't know John really well, other than, you know, knew that he played with Unsteady. And once again, I was like a fan of Unsteady growing up in the 90s. And so when he reached out to me and I got to know him a little more, I was like, wow, like there's still people out here like this, like so like there's, like I said, no agenda. So I gravitated to work with him on that just because of that. And he's an amazing dude and such a great human. And he has been doing a really cool thing where he's bridging all these musicians worldwide. And I know during quarantine, it was kind of the name of the game, right? Everybody's like online and kind of doing music with each other remotely, but he successfully pulled it off, and hats off to him. It's a great project. I encourage everyone to go and check out that music. There's some really, really, really good music that came out of the marriages that he had, getting this musician to play with this musician and whatnot, you know. So he's just a great mind, and does it for the love of the music for sure.
Yeah, and lots of material out too, and
a lot
originals and covers and
right.
Big respect to John Roy. You also collaborated with Dan Ubik and the Night Owls, right? To talk about the project.
That is such a cool project in the sense that, like, Dave Wilder on bass, Dan Ubik on guitar, you know, Blake on drums. That's the core of that project. And we don't get together at all. It's a pure studio thing. Dan is the curator of it. He's the leader of it. It's a beautiful script that I think a lot of bands nowadays are pulling from anyways, which is, let's take songs that are already established and already written, right? Which is, it's cheating, but, you know, it is what it is. And doing your take on it. And that's what we've been doing. And I think Dan, it's just been successful because Dan has put a lot of work into making it successful. He goes out and he gets the artist to sing on it. He'll choose the songs. And essentially all I got to do is, you know, hang out in my studio, record them, put my flavor on them, and send them off. And he mixes it. I mean, he does a great job with that project. And I'm fortunate to, like I said, those guys are other guys that as a kid, I'm looking up to. I mean, I remember the first time I saw Sharon Jones was at a Knitting Factory, because I was into like the deep funk and soul stuff, you know, before she like it was the main room of the Knitting Factory, right? And it still wasn't even packed. It was like Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. And Connie Price, Keystones, which is Dan Ubik's band, they opened up. And I remember I was like, oh shoot, you know, and now he's the homie. So yeah.
That's amazing. Let's talk about Reggae Podclash and you and Devin. Did it start prior to COVID or during COVID? I can't recall, but I love that. I know that you're not doing it anymore, or at least
right. The idea started way before COVID. Me and Devin had the idea of just that, like you know, a podcast. Not so much the video aspect, but you know, just audio podcast. Yeah. Same concept, you know, go around and interview people and blah blah blah. But we were just always busy, you know, so part of laziness and just not time for it. Then when COVID happened, Devin, you know, a new read from Rootfire, that's a reggae platform. They're very successful, and then so they were kind of had the concept of doing something like that. So it was a no brainer for Devin to reach out to me and say, look, why not turn that into what we've been talking about? And it just happened. And so with the help of, you know, we're able to pull a lot of really cool artists and do that because
of the full spectrum of contemporary legends.
Right.
Lots of folks from the scene. Yeah. I loved it.
It turned out very quickly that the mission statement of that was going to definitely be bridging gaps, you know, because you have a huge reggae scene that's here in California, and it's so different than, you know, the reggae of back in the day and blah 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 on many levels, not just the sound but just all together. And you know, we knew that people watching that would either gravitate towards a certain artist we'd have on or another artist, but not really, there's no gray area in that Venn diagram, there's no like middle part. So it was important for us to kind of let that be the mission statement on that, is to bridge that gap, you know. So
yeah,
hopefully.
Well, you brought a lot of joy and a lot of how you would open it up with each playing some tunes and then talk about those tracks was really informative and fun, and just really enjoyed the wide variety of
thank you, man.
Of guests. So, yeah, kudos to you and Devin. That was always great to hear. Who are the current members of the Aggrolites?
Well, I quit the band yesterday, so I don't know what up to.
I know we wanted to break it here, right?
Yeah, it's broken here. This is the National Enquirer, TMZ. So me and Jesse, the original member, is still with us, but then you got Jeff Alfredo, who might as well be an original member. He's been playing with us for so long. We got Chris Brennan on guitar, who we all can't talk enough about Chris. He's like the Swiss Army knife. He's just he does everything. Chris Brennan is, he deserves an award, man. I mean, his work with Expanders and all these bands, he is a huge part and has been in this era of the Aggrolites for us. I mean, really, not to get deep, but like, leave it up to Chris Brennan to give you some inspiring talk backstage on like, come on, guys, do you not, when you kind of like lose the fire or whatever, he's really in it. And then we got Chris Bourbon from Capsules on drums with us right now, and the Capsules are an amazing band.
Yeah, Chris, one of the best on the scene. Yep.
Right. We've been fortunate to have a nice like interchanging spot on the drumming position over the past 10 years or so, and it's been cool for us because everyone has their different flavor, and so they are playing the same, the songs that we play, but they're going to bring something to the table, and they're all different and they're all good because again, it's how they listen to Jamaican music. So you may have like Eric Alvarez from the Delirians, who's influenced by something rocksteady over here, and then same thing with Chris and Alex McKenzie, and so yeah. So
you're clearly the dead weight in the band.
Oh my gosh, they've been trying to get rid of me for years, and I'm just I stay for the free beer backstage. So
I know that. You know that I'm long time fascinated with the connection between Cuban and Jamaican music.
Yes.
You did a great little video montage, little education piece for the Havana Kingston connection on Rockery Radio. But can you share, because I know that you also are knowledgeable and fascinated by it, but share who are some of the key links between that connection?
Well, I mean, for me, a lot of it came out of the Scotalites and like, Perez Prado having songs that Tommy McCook would take and now they make it their own. That's the main one for me is growing up listening to the Scotalites and none the wiser thinking, okay, that's a Scotalites song. And then it's like, you grow up to go, no, not at all. I mean, what you've been believing for years is not the truth. It's like, okay, no, this is the original. So to see, guys like Tommy, Roland, all the guys in the Scotalites kind of pick their moments where they're gonna, I mean, really just be, you can't call it influence. It's like, we're just gonna take that song pretty much and kind of relabel it. Now, in justice to them, they do make it their own. And I think that's one of the main reasons why someone like me will think, oh, it's a Skylight song. It's because they make it their own so much that it is a different song. It's like the melody still is the same, but it's a different thing. Laurel Aiken comes to mind, with the whole connection there. But I think that there's it's kind of a look into what inspires the Jamaican artists that inspire me. When you talk about everyone from the boogie woogie stuff, like the Louis Jordan stuff that they were listening to in America, to what we're talking about now, the music's come out of Cuba. It's like you get to see what turned them on because they're not and what inspires them and how they get from point A to point B. So without any of that music, we wouldn't have any of those Scotlight standards, and it's cool to see the story, how it morphs. And yes, man, dude, Havana Kingston connection. It's just, I remember when what year was that, Eric? Because I remember when that would happen. I was
I had the radio show on KLON KJazz from 01 to 05, basically.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
Half a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I loved it because and that's why I geeked out on that video too, is because I can respect and I love cats that dig deep like that, and so you finding the connection and educating. It's like it's just educating, it's like it's infectious for the right people, so I get off on that too. And I think that you making the connection there, obviously that's the name of the show. It was cool for people like me because I'm like over here like, wow, you got this. Eric is just knowledgeable and connecting the dots, where imagine someone that wants to connect the dots and doesn't have that leader. You'd be searching online forever, and it's all there.
And the love also.
The
love for the music.
The love for the music. I mean, look, it's that's what I'm saying. I think a good educator, right, they don't do it because they want to, it's the ego or the pride, like I'm going to educate. No, a good educator, it's just, that's the byproduct of the passion for the music. It's gonna happen, it's just gonna happen. You're not doing it for the nod, tip of the hat. It's like, dude,
absolutely, yeah. And we're in our final couple of questions here, but do you feel that with some of the musicians that have come from the, let's call it the LA Ska, rocksteady, early reggae scene, yourself, Robert Sotelo, the Expanders, who, you all are either in groups or started groups that have somewhat crossed over, right? You being in Beach Dub Allstars, that are crossed over or part of the other reggae scene, right? Let's call it the American reggae scene. Do you feel that that helps and has been a bridge between those two scenes? There's similarities, but there's also major differences between those scenes, right?
Yeah. I think that yes and no. My experience is that what I would like to have happen is that you have this, that I call it the Cali scene, the bro reggae scene, bro reggae. What I would like to see is the audience quickly gravitate towards the original Jamaican music. My experience is that that's not the case. The audience just doesn't happen. It's not, that whole scene is not based primarily on the music. It's a culture based on a combination of maybe, smoking and partying and whatever. But what has happened that is really cool is the musicians get influenced. So working in that scene and having the foot in that scene, you got, like you said, people like Robert or Devin or myself, the influence I've seen hits the other musicians that are playing, right? So I've had, like, for example, I was having a conversation at the last Cali Vibes with the, one of the members of Iatera, and with social media and the internet now, they know what I'm about. Like, they know, okay, they may not be all into it, but they know, okay, he listens to that old stuff, whatever. But then there's certain guys that now they're gravitating towards that, and now I'm kind of a small pathway to that. And so they'll come and they'll share with me. They'll give me their kind of testimony, like their story. Oh, right, man, I did this and that, and I went down the rabbit hole. So I've seen a lot more of that, which is great, because if you can influence the teachers, hopefully it parlays into their music, whatever. But who am I? I mean, I've had my battles with going back and forth on what I think it should be and shouldn't be, and it's really rough conversation to have. But I'd still like to see more influenced modern reggae in the Cali scene that's influenced by original reggae music, and I think that, how could you not, right? If you're in this scene so long, the truth, it's only a matter of time before the truth hits you. It's like, you're gonna feel it,
Well,
like,
and because the Aggrolites have opened up and toured with Slightly Stupid over the years, you've also done some work with that.
Yeah, right. So a lot of these bands, they're like, first and foremost, my homies, right? Yeah. Slightly Stupid guys, a lot of these bands, and it's two different camps, so what Slightly Stupid does and has been doing, but it's a mutual respect for different reasons, and so working with them, I got to write music for them on their albums and produce songs with them, and they've taught me so much, and vice versa. Aggrolites were a big band for them when we went on tour, and they had admiration for what we were doing. And so that's what it's all about. It's all about that, kind of learning from each other and being able to like build each other up in different areas. And so Kyle and Miles, the leaders of Slightly Stupid, man, taking out Don Carlos and stuff like that, that's huge as a show of respect to the original stuff, because now it's in your face, ladies and gentlemen, all that. How many people are huge fans of Don Carlos because of that now? And not to take anything away from Don Carlos and his career, but there's so many people that would have
definitely introduced him to an audience. Yeah,
exactly. Right. Which is a beautiful thing, like I say, and it gives, it kind of reels me back in sometimes when I want to look at certain audiences and go, oh, look at them a certain way or label them a certain way. It's like, no, it's not like that they don't like it. It's that they don't have the opportunity. They're not introduced to it. They just need, the dots to connect,
Yeah. Well said. Roger, is there anything we've not touched on?
Well, yeah, I thought we were just
we've
getting
not
started.
brought up any of your scandals, so we
Good.
kept our word.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a whole talk before this. Don't bring up this. I sent them an email. Don't bring up that. Don't bring up that. Don't bring up that.
Your lawyers reached out to our lawyers. I know. It was a whole thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Nah, man, there's nothing. I just keep on keeping on. I love what you guys are doing. I saw the Monty episode, and it's just, you guys are the right people for it, because you guys are so in depth in the music and know the right questions to ask and everything. And so that's the best part, is when you see an artist that you respect like Monty and guys like yourselves that are not just asking the generic stuff, but it's a total tennis match. You're playing back and forth. And so I enjoyed that. And just keep doing it, man, because people need, not to get deep, but this is like going to be in the archives forever. You know what I mean? It's going to be on YouTube forever. So 80 years, 100 years from now.
Well, we're
important.
It's very, very kind of you, and we appreciate everyone's support. This wouldn't happen without Junor Francis here.
I could say this. That was not even my thought. I didn't even know how to start this thing.
I'm telling you, I know you guys, and I've been fortunate to be homies with you guys, but I'm still the starstruck vibe that always occurs, So, because come on, like I said, back in the day, seeing you guys, I have Reggae Nucleus magazines in boxes somewhere. I really do. All the ones back in the day, Club Skapawa in the vault in Pomona, going to stuff like that, and just always, you guys. Without you, there's a lot that wouldn't have happened. So, yeah man.
Yeah, I think Eric is really blessed in terms of creating ideal condition.
Yeah, Eric, you have such a you have such a not a responsibility, but you kind of put yourself in that position willingly to because you're such a successful dude, and you choose to always reel in and bring in Jamaican music and things that you do, all your connections and what you've done over the years with the people, because it's like you network, but in such a great way where you always reel in things, and you make people. I think that's what's cool about our business, is that there's certain people that are super like successful, but not successful in the business way, but like just as a human, because it's like this, you're not greedy. It's like you want people the synergy to happen. And that's what I've noticed. If I ever have a question, like I could just go to Eric and go, okay, who do you know here? And because I know Eric knows everyone,
And I second everything you said, because if you use comparative analysis, you see a lot of people in Eric's position, but they in the reggae, but they move on to focus on, but Eric always kept one foot, ska, rocksteady, and reggae.
Right, exactly.
As soon as I win the lottery, you'll never hear from me again. But aside from that,
which is okay.
No, Roger, I really appreciate that your kindness and
I don't know how you stay looking that young too, both of you.
Well, I appreciate that greatly. No, but hey, Roger, I'm very proud. You're a hard worker. You're dedicated. And I've seen you grow over the years, and I'm very proud of you, and I'm thankful to call you a friend. Aggrolites will continue to be one of my all-time favorites. You all still slay it. I saw you most recently at the Beach Live Fest. And I actually get my haircut again tomorrow by Wags the Barber.
Ooh, yes.
Shout out to Jesse. And next time we'll talk more about your DJ, because I know that you're a big time collector, top selector around town, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, sure. I'm a talker. Sorry, but this thing's been going on for
We've loved this hearing about all your accomplishments, and you're still young, so you have a whole lifetime ahead. In fact, you're an ordained minister.
Oh yes, there you go.
Jesse, one of the greatest nights of my life was his wedding, where you officiated.
Yeah, that was fun. That was so much fun.
And then the all-star finale that had Linville Golding and Slackers and Hepcat and Aggrolites.
Right.
Amazing. So
that was crazy.
So yes. All right. Well, Junor.
Well, in my opening remarks, I said it. I thought LA musicians were just large and nice when I heard about ska and rocksteady. They said it's probably noise. These guys can recapture that sound, but I was proven wrong time and time again. When I came, there were times I said in my opening statement that when I saw you the first time, I'd literally go to concerts just to see you on the keys.
True. I remember
it was like sort of like a resurrection of Jackie.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, man.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even say. So, Junor, real quick story. Back in the day, I remember Eric when we were managing us, and you needed my passport for something, and I went to Pomona, a Junior spot. I walked in his spot. It was just something to drop off my passport because he was going to give it to you. And I saw a poster I've never seen before in my life. And it was of Jackie Matu. And it was in Junior's house. And I was just tripping out on it. Junior went up, took the poster down, and gave it to me.
Wow.
And
Where is it? Show me now.
here, I'm gonna.
Oh, wow.
So I'm gonna take this. It's kind of dark. I don't know if you can see that.
I remember this tribute to Jackie.
Oh, yeah, that was the VP Records release. Wow,
Mhm.
yes.
Can it kind of come out? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I can see. That's an incredible tribute album.
So it's so funny because, like I said,
I knew you would put it to better use.
oh my gosh, I'll cherish that forever, Junior. So I thank. Yes.
You know, first time I saw him, I was rude to him, but I have to live with that indignity.
To Jackie?
Yeah,
Oh,
but I was rude.
Oh geez.
Yeah, he was selling. I was my brother's record store, and he came with Dennis Brown,
Oh.
Revolution, and so he wanted me to give him advance on the record. I said, no, nobody do any business like that. You leave the record, and after the record is sold, we give you the money. That's the standard in the business.
Right.
Once Earl Morgan walk in and say, you know, who is that? See, I don't know him. But he want me to give him upfront money. It's 12 o'clock in the day. Record shop is open. Says Jackie me too.
Wow, man. Wow.
Yeah, I have to live with that. That's sin.
Well,
Oh no.
you can tell that story.
No more storytelling.
I know.
Wow.
Jackie.
Well, Roger, hey, thank you for everything. Keep up the amazing work. All right.
Yes.
And
I think we're at our destination.
Yes, we
right?
have.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
All right. Good, Roger.
You have a website.
Yeah, man. RogerRivas.com. Go check it out. Right now, it's serving as like kind of a, like a all-in-one, like a one-page kind of thing. But yeah. I'd eventually like to get it all super, legit, where I sell the Rivas 45s that are up here somewhere. But that part's not too important to me right now, is playing that role. So yeah, RogerRivas.com if you want to check out what I'm about.
For our non-English speaking friends, could you do the spelling for that?
Oh yeah, okay. So Roger, ROGER,
Mhm.
and then RIVAS, all one, ROGERRIVAS.com.
One of the finest keyboard players in Los Angeles. I don't want to wait until you're dead. I say that.
Thank you so much, Junior.
100%. 100% accurate.
Well, please subscribe to this podcast series and our YouTube channel. Follow us at History of LA on Instagram and join our Facebook group. Facebook group is really growing. Congratulations and big respect to Eric. Really growing. People are joining daily.
Yes.
Me at Junor Francis. This series is produced again by Eric Colum, good friend for the Rockery Radio and Rockery _ and follow Eric at, well, actually for the Rockery Radio is Rock Radio at Rockery _radio. Did I say it right?
At Rockery _radio.
Right. Mhm.
And thank you all for taking the time to listen, for the ongoing support. Roger, much love to you. Junior.
Thanks for your time, Roger.
Yes.
You
Junior.
guys so much
You're
for having
doing many other things,
Yeah.
like some other things we can't talk about.
Yes,
Stay
soon.
tuned.
Yes, soon.
Yeah,
Stay
sure.
tuned with the
Stay
channel.
tuned. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and Junior, thank you
Yes,
for all you
sir.
do.
Roger will become larger than life in the months ahead.
All right.
It'd be very fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Thanks again, everyone. Roger, Junior.
Big
Until
respect.
next time.
Big
Much
respect.
love. Take care.
Guys.
All right.